Now, taking the evenings forward, it gives me immense pleasure to start our first session themed Leaders Forum, Playing for Parity, a special conversation addressing the evolving role of women, particularly in the workplace and economy, and the ecosystem facilitating this progress. The following leaders belonging to India's top enterprises are front runners, proactively playing for parity not just in their own businesses, but inspiring young enterprises to follow suit. Along with them, we also have with us an industry leader who is mainstreaming the gender parity discussion and an ambassador who has been championing the cause of gender equality in her country, India, and the world. To lead the session, I would first like to call back on stage Shereen Bhan. She's the moderator for the session. Please welcome our panelists, Dr. Anish Shah, Managing Director and CEO, Mahindra Group, Hitendra Dave, CEO, HSBC India, Manish Shah, Managing Director and CEO, Godrej Capital, N. Venkatram, CEO, Deloitte India, Prabha Narsimhan, CEO, Colgate-Palmolive India Limited, Her Excellency Ritva Koukku Ronde, Ambassador of Finland to India, and Dr. Sangita Reddy, Joint MD, Apollo Hospitals Group. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for our panelists this evening.
It is not very often that you see this on stage, ladies and gentlemen. I have done panel discussion after panel discussion for the last 22 years, and invariably it's a room full of suits and I'm the only woman there. So this really is fabulous to see. Equal representation pretty much here on stage, and what a perfect start to this fabulous evening. Without further ado, I want to start with you, Ambassador, because I don't know how many people here know. We all know about the fact that Finland has a great track record when we talk about gender parity, when we talk about inclusivity, but I don't know how many of you know that Finland was the first country in the world to allow women to vote and also give them eligibility to participate in the parliamentary process way back in 1906. And today, in 2022, I think almost 47% of your parliament is women. So, Ambassador, what's the story, what's the secret to ensuring that you have this kind of diversity, this kind of inclusivity?
First of all, great pleasure and honor to be here, and indeed, it's very seldom that you have such a high participation of male participants in a discussion where gender equality is discussed. So, congratulations.
We didn't want only women talking to other women. We wanted the men to talk to women and the women to talk to men as well.
So I don't think Finland has any secret, actually. It's a hard work. When one thinks about more than 100 years ago, we were an agrarian country, a lot of diversity, a lot of imparity and all that kind of things. But when women were elected to the parliament, there were coming more these kind of social issues also, and they were able to change, together of course men, the legislative framework in a way that it benefited both women and women in education, in working life, and also in political participation. The other thing is, and indeed, we made that sort of legislation also. We have at the moment, we have achieved a lot. We have a free quality education, public education, free for all, mandatory nowadays until the age of 18. So it means that after the primary, secondary school, one has to go to at least vocational training. So I would put emphasis here that education, free education, all kind of enables to do, for instance, free school lunches or parental leaves or child care, which is practically free, also practically free health care combined to that. Enabling environment on making economic growth. And actually, if you are looking statistically also that the last 50 years in the Nordic countries, we count that maybe 10 to 20% of our GDP growth is due to the fact that we have relatively high gender equality. So we never have been able to, and we couldn't really enable women to stay at home only, although of course homework is also homework. But the sort of active participations of everybody to build the society. And we have had hard times, Second World War, really hard times after that as well. So it hasn't been really an easy path. But it is a path to become one of the leading countries when it comes to innovations, technologies, or when it comes to the social equality also in the society. And that is, I think that is the success also, that everybody is participating and having the possibility to participate. And this is public-private, there are civil society organizations. And then I would put also combined of really equality in the sense on respecting of human rights, judiciary, democracy and the participation in that sense. Long answer to your question.
No, that was a very comprehensive answer to my question, and I think what you said is absolutely right. It is not, there's no silver bullet, there is no magic wand. It's a hard, arduous journey that everyone must undertake. There are tough choices to be made, but because it is a national priority, in fact, it is one of the 4 national priorities that Finland has put in place, that they've been able to achieve the kind of success that they have. Sangita Reddy, I want to come to you. And first of all, thank you very much for being here. You know, Sangita had a family celebration last night, and she wasn't sure if she was going to be able to join us here in person. I messaged her, I said, please come in person, and she's here. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that, Sangita. It means a lot to us. You know, along with your sisters, you've been part of the family business. You've been running Apollo Hospital, Sangita, for as long as you started your career. But what was the experience like when you led an industry chamber? How is that different from your work experience so far?
So, Shereen, first, it's a pleasure to be here, and I really want to thank you for putting the spotlight on this, and this whole concept of future female forward is very powerful. What is the world looking for? What is our future? We're talking about equity. We're talking about, a kinder, better world. We're talking about the environment. And I think all these are ideologies that women kind of naturally embody. So the world will be a better place when we look at equity. But jumping directly into your question, I want to say that FICCI was a great experience. 2 years ago, I headed the chamber. I wasn't the first woman leading it. I was actually the third.
Yeah.
So FICCI does have a culture, whereas my sister who headed CII was actually CII's first female president. So that was interesting. But I really want to say that I believe that educated men and women who are exposed and who are confident don't have that many problems about gender equality. And therefore, at FICCI, it was a lot of fun. Of course, it was a difficult year because it was also the COVID year, so we did more Zoom calls than actual meetings. But the main point I want to make in just one line is that if we have the exposure, the education, the open-mindedness and the mindset, then it's about leadership. It's not about female leadership.
Yeah.
And that's really where we need to go and where I think India is headed.
I absolutely agree with you. And Anish Shah, I want you to pick up on what we just heard there from Sangita. You know, the idea behind putting this event together and getting each one of you to speak is to understand what what organizations are actually doing to encourage bringing more women into the workforce, what you're actually doing to retain women and enable them to lead organizations as well. I want to understand from the Mahindra experience, traditionally when you think of manufacturing, you think of the assembly line, you don't think of women being on the assembly line, but that's changing. It's changed at Mahindra, it's changed in a lot of other Indian manufacturing companies, auto companies specifically. How did that happen, and what are you now trying to do to ensure that the momentum picks up pace further?
Shereen, to start with, this is a very important initiative because in India in particular, we see a lot less female participation in leadership. So at the shop floor, it has changed a lot, and that goes from the practices in the company. But we haven't done as good a job at the leadership level. That's something we are driving very hard right now.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think that's the case that it just reflects the rest of industry. So typically when we search for new leaders, the answer from search firms is, well, there are no candidates for this. And that's something that we have to fight hard against. At the board level today, in all our major boards, 30 to 40% are women. At the corporate level, over the last couple of years, of 14 hires, 9 are women at this very senior level. Mahindra Finance now, I'm proud to say that, has 40% of the CEO's direct reports as women, which just happened over the last few months. So that journey has started, but there's still a long way for us to go.
It's a long way to go, and I want to then address this issue of the cause as well as the result. You said that when search firms are put out to look for women candidates, they come back and say that there are not enough women. And that might genuinely be an issue as well, because you see a large attrition happen as far as the mid-level is concerned. In that life cycle of maternity, etc., you actually see women dropping out. That's one aspect. The other aspect of the representation of women on boards, etc., through the Companies Act, making it mandatory to have at least one woman director on the board, that has increase the numbers. But is reservation the answer? A woman leader in a very high position of power, speaking to me a few days ago, she said, I don't know if I want reservation for women, because then I'll always feel like the men are looking at me saying, you got here because of reservation, you didn't get here because of merit. Is that then the answer?
Reservation is clearly not the answer. I've gone through this journey in my previous organization at GE Capital, where we went from 5% women of my direct reports to literally 44% over 5 years. And the most important part was it has to be based on meritocracy. No one in the organization should feel that someone is there because there was a spot reserved. And that is an extremely essential part of the culture in the organization. And even as I talked about search firms, the minute we started pushing back on them, the firms we work with now know that they cannot give us a slate without having participation from women candidates who are, by merit, the right people for that role. So it's just a matter of pushing hard. It's easy to say, okay, here's a pool available, let's just pick from there, but you've got to go deeper to the next level.
Speaking of the next level, yeah, Sangita, you wanted to make a point. Yeah.
I just wanted to make a quick point. And, women or environments where there hasn't been deprivation or negativity, you don't need reservation.
Yeah.
But if we want to catch up fast, we need a little bit of a boost. And whichever way you bring that boost, you look at the number of female directors in India. The independent director number grew only after it became regulated. So is that necessarily bad? Are people going to sit there and say you got here because there was reservation? Probably in the beginning. But this is a step towards a greater good. So, I do believe there's some case for intelligent reservation.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is that we have seen the numbers go up. In fact, they're still not as high as we need them to be, but we have seen the numbers go up. Prabha, speaking about the next level, and in your experience of being in the FMCG space and now at Colgate, are there specific interventions that you're making to ensure that you can keep attrition low, especially at the mid-management level?
So firstly, Shereen, thank you very much for having me here. I think you said it's the future female forward, right thing to do, smart thing to do. I could not agree more. I think from middle management level, once women have perhaps gone through the phase of maternity, they're thinking about coming back to work, there are certainly 2 or 3 things that I think companies can do to help them. One, of course, is to provide mentorship. the idea of people you can look up to, whether they be men or women, who can help guide you and help you to chart a career path that works for you, because not everything works for everyone, would be, I think, the first one. The second one is, I think we should really encourage women to have networks. A lot of women feel that networking is not something that either that they're good at or that they should be doing. And the networks can be truly helpful, particularly in moments where you're feeling, is this the right thing for me to do, or should I be stepping back and, doing something else? So these two for me are perhaps the biggest two things that I think organizations could really help with.
A women's club to the boys' club? Is that really the answer?
No, actually I don't mean networks of women. I mean just networks,
I agree.
gender-neutral networks actually.
I agree, and I keep saying this. I said, you don't want to replace one club with another, because clubs are exclusionary. What you actually want is a collective, and which is why we've called this the Future Female Collective, because we want it to be a collective not just of women, but a collective of men and women to take the conversation forward. Hitendra Dave, the financial space, the financial services space has actually done better, both in terms of representation of women in different roles and functions, as well as in leadership positions. I know that this is something that you're championing personally at HSBC, and HSBC is championing globally as well. What have been the challenges of being able to pick up pace on the goal that you've set for yourself by 2025?
Yeah, hi Shereen. So I think one is, you mentioned, right, that you can do everything you want, you go to the campus. That tends to be the largest number of hiring spots for us, and it does become extremely competitive there, right? So from just the sheer number of women employees or potential employees who are available, either middle management, senior management, or entry level, the numbers are skewed. So I think when you see engineering colleges, hopefully 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or MBA institutes 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where there's a natural balance. I think you use the word parity and inclusiveness and diversity. So when you get it naturally, and I think conversations such as this will clearly then trigger more and more employers, more and more corporates, more and more boards, more and more managements. So that's, I think, one part, that the challenge is the sheer availability. I think the other thing, I do want to change the narrative a little bit, and that's why I think, why at least I can speak for the firm that I represent, that I think there is almost a recognition and an acceptance that you are not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not doing any women any favor. It's not a tick the box exercise. There is clear data, there is clear evidence that companies that have diversified pools of talent, in this instance we are talking about gender diversity, but could be somebody from a tribal area, somebody from a non-urban area, you do tend to get much better quality inputs into your decisions. So I think that's the other thing. So at least from an HSBC perspective, it's about wanting to make sure that we do a better job. And if we think we'll do a better job by having more women in our executive management teams, in our mid-management teams, that's part of that. So you spoke about reservation. I actually think it's the right thing to do if you want to do a good job. But overall, I think financial sector has had great leaders. We have an ex-deputy governor sitting amongst us. I mean, when we were just talking to her, she was a deputy governor along with another deputy governor who was a woman.
Absolutely.
When I think this subject was not even live, right? And we have had women leaders in some of the private sector banks, and those banks were just known for all. So I think there are lots of role models. You are a role model, if I may say so, for a lot of people. So I think we need these role models. We need organizations to realize that they're not doing anybody any favors. But most importantly, you need women to realize that they can do a great job at home as well as in the office, and the organizations now are more than willing to listen and do what it takes. At least we think we are trying to do that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Shamala Gopinath, the former Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India. Please give her a big round of applause. Really path-breaking women leaders who are here with us this evening as well. Manish, let me address this issue that we just heard there from Hitendra in terms of organizations being more listening, being more empathetic, and actually trying to change the culture, change policies to ensure that you bring in more women and you retain more women and you create a culture of meritocracy. I know you've made this a C-suite priority for you, and there's already been a fair amount of work that's gone in there. What's worked? What hasn't?
Sure. Just before, like you said, Shereen, it isn't every day that you get to be on a panel like this. I'm equal parts proud and nervous to be here. So for starters, I think it first starts from absolutely from the top, right? Wasn't until I joined Godrej over the 3.5 years ago that the appreciation came through that diversity goes much, much beyond gender. It goes to religion, sexual orientation, just parts of the country you're from. And for you to accept that if you're going to stand out for innovation, it's never going to come from a bunch of folks who all look and talk and sound the same. So like you said, right, it's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. And I think, again, like you said, as much as we love the idea of a silver bullet, we've yet to find one. And if we could break it up into 3 parts in how we're trying to address it, and we had the opportunity at Godrej Capital because we were starting from scratch. So we had sort of the help from the group, we had people to learn from and role model from. For example, in the FMCG business, Godrej Consumer has 40% of the board are women. Long before it became a mandate, the rest of the country moved from, I think, 5 or 6 to 3 times that, is already at 40. So there was a high benchmark already set. But as we got to doing it, we figured that it's hard work. So in our case, just three things that we've looked at working with. First, you need representation and real representation. One of the risks that we all run in corporate India is we can tick the boxes, we can meet the numbers. Representation for us means seat at the table. So for us, in my management team, 50% are women. So it's like right down the middle, half and half. It starts there but doesn't stop there. It's got to go to CXO -1. Again, their numbers are similar. But again, like we spoke earlier, as getting the leadership team through the door is the start. Once leadership is in, it's been a struggle, and it's been, again, a lot of hard work, part of our teams here. You've got to expand the top of the funnel. If I'm a middle-level, hiring manager, I've got 5 people to hire, and I've got 10 resumes to hire them from. And if you only if 9 of the 10 are men, and then you expect me to meet 40–50%, how am I going to manage that? And there are ways to do that, right? Careers 2.0, you've got to look harder. So part 1, representation and seat at the table. Part 2 is just ease of doing business. So in financial services, so many of our policies are, old boys club led. For example, we've just got crazy end of month, end of quarter, late nights. And so often when you get the policies right for women, it's the right thing to do for the company. For instance, it's just par for the course to be sitting up through midnight, end of quarters, burning the midnight oil, getting it done. Level 1, you solve for saying, just do the right thing, get the cab going, trusted, late night providers, etc. But level 2 is saying, hang on a second. Yeah. If we're new age, aren't we going to get better? Shouldn't everybody just go home at a decent hour? Yeah. And last not least, actually, is how are you facilitating growth? So, folks spoke about coaching and networks internally, so I won't talk any more about that, but there are a few programs there. But one example I'd love to give is very, very often women growing in organizations, mobility has been a problem. It's perfectly normal for the spouse, the wife, to follow the husband if he's moving up, but doesn't always work the other way around. So why must you always have to move to head office if you're going to take the promotion or let it go? The country is pretty much an equal market. Those of us who are in retail businesses, every leader doesn't have to sit in the same building. So if you're based elsewhere, and we've loved the fact that we've been able to promote folks in saying you will, you run the larger job, yeah, travel as you need to, as all of us do, but you don't need to move. No, so I think a few of these things.
That's an important point that you make, and I want to segue that to you, Mr. Venkatraman, because Deloitte does a study on what really impacts women in the workforce, and this is a real statistic. I think it's 51% women feel that they have mental health related issues because of just dealing with the pressures that come with work and dealing with stuff at home as well. And that's a reality, and that's an undeniable reality. I want you to take us through what the data is telling us about what's constraining women, what's holding back women in the workforce.
Thank you, Shereen. I think that first, I must really genuinely thank you, because in Deloitte we have a rule of 40-40-20, that 40% men, 40% women.
So if you can hold up the mic.
And
yeah,
20% for the underprivileged. Today, though, I'm privileged to be here with you. If I count myself in the underprivileged, we have the right ratio of representation here. Well, I mean, this is a vexing problem, but it's also the greatest, I think, the opportunity of our times. And let me start at a macro level to say, if I look at India, because we're all here, we're all building businesses here, 400 million millennials in this country, 50% minimum women. That's 200 million millennials. Even if you say we get 50% of that in the workforce, and that's 100 million. It's a staggering number. I'm pretty sure that most of us in this room have an average age which is below 30 as well. I mean, I, for one, in our organization, employ 8,000 women. The vast majority are about 27 to 28 years old. And this is the excitement. And we talked about whether it's the right thing to do. We believe that it's the right business thing to do.
Yeah.
But when we do our surveys, and these are global surveys, this is not an India survey. This is a survey, am I okay or am I?
Yeah, it's fine.
This is a survey which we did in 30 countries across. And I think it's certainly also due to the pandemic that there was a lot of stress in the system. I also do believe that one of the reasons why this happens, if I look at causal factors, is because when we look at how we deal with women in the workforce, we sometimes forget that they do a hell of a lot of work outside of their work. And during the pandemic, that was particularly, very, very stressful, with the fact that your children were at home. You have a lot of families where people thought it's a woman's job to take care of what happens to the child at home. And therefore, when you look at stress, we look at stress in the workplace to say solve it, by not just trying to solve what happens at work. Work-life balance is not just about what happens at work. It's what happens in life. So you've got to look at life as a whole, look at it more holistically. But the real finding we got from the survey is the fact that if you have those evolved organizations who know how to respect the fact that you have to treat your entire workforce, it's not just women, because we're talking about equality here, men and women better. If you have a happier workplace, you get far better results. And of course, in this survey, we surveyed the women. And women who were surveyed who were in these happier organizations said that they were willing to stay with the same organization for more than 5 years. In our services industry, 5 years is like a bonus, right? Because you're spending so much time training people, they build the relationships. If you keep them for 5 years, you've virtually got them for life.
Yeah, I agree that if you make it conducive for women to stay on, they will. But, I want to address that issue, and I'll get each one of you to talk about that. Sangita, let me start by asking you to actually have policies where I think we're still struggling with the mindset that maternity benefit, it's not a benefit, it is a right that the woman has, because she is actually looking after and childcare is the primary responsibility, and especially in patriarchal cultures like ours. So to get corporations to change the mindset of seeing these as benefits or incentives to women, and also to look at things from a much more gender neutral way. So why not look at parental leave and make that an option and make that accessible to people? I know Finland is doing that. What about the opportunity as a business opportunity for childcare, for geriatric care? Why are we not thinking actively about these things? I mean, we are one of the world's best destinations when it comes to health care. Why aren't we actively thinking about affordable child care, affordable geriatric care, which otherwise becomes a disproportionate burden on women?
So, Shereen, with this question, you've really opened up a series of, the next dimension. Starting first with the policy, I want to take a minute to say that during this time at FICCI, we started what was called the greater 50%. Because we said that while in India the population of women is under 49, their impact is actually the greater 50%. Because their impact is seen in multiple dimensions which are very often not measured. And one of those unmeasured dimensions is the care economy, which is a whole separate subject. Can we quantify it? Can we put a tag on it? What will the impact be if we could tag the care economy? Our GDP would almost go up by 40 to 70%, depending on how you look at it. So that's one whole dimension. But coming back to the important thing of two important things that you raised, one is policy and the other is mindset. So in policy, we actually made a framework called the Female Friendly Organization, which was a simple checklist. You know, from things like, do you have toilets? What do you do in terms of leave policy? Do you have paternity leave? And therefore the woman, it's not just about being able to stay at home and protect her income. It's also what happens to her place in the career ladder. Because if she's taking 6 months or 1 year off, has she lost her promotion opportunities? So we need to start thinking equal in many ways. And with that and a policy framework, I really want to jump to the whole idea of mindset. Because many of these are not just about a policy framework, it's about execution and it's about mindset. And I'm going to give you a very simple example. Many medical colleges today have almost 70% women. This is interesting. I mean, Apollo has, our female workforce is over 50%, our board is more than 55%, but our medical college has 80% women, but that's a different story. The important point I'm trying to make is that when a woman in a home is a doctor, somehow the mother-in-law, the husband, everybody is very understanding about their need to go and serve a patient in the middle of the night, that they're taking calls, that they're staying late. This ability to respect the woman's career, and I'm really happy they're doing it for women doctors, but I think this ability to extend this framework to more than the medical profession will be one step towards recognition of women's contribution in the workforce at large. So we need to focus on that. And that is, again, you know, coming from your silver bullet point, this may not happen, you know, in the next 5 years or in the next decade. But we must start asking the questions, what are we doing in terms of framing? How are we bringing up our young men? Are they taking an equal role in the house? And, you know, just this thing, I recently had a grandchild, and my daughter-in-law, very sweetly, I saw my grandson playing with his cousin's doll. And I asked her, can I buy him a doll? And she said, of course, I have no stereotypes for boys. And I loved it. Exactly. So 30-year-old women are saying we have no stereotypes for our sons. So I feel very strongly that in the next 10, 20 years, India is going to be a very different place.
Yes, Prabha, please.
I just wanted to actually add on the policy point, because you make a really great point. And when we make female-first policies, they don't necessarily need to be targeted to women. Because if you start saying parental leave, then the responsibility is a shared responsibility. If it's maternity leave, then it is the mom's responsibility. And I think corporations can go a long way with their policies to modify mindset as well.
Absolutely. Anish, I want to ask you, what's the roadmap? What are the targets that you're setting? What is the action agenda that you're putting together at Eminent?
I go back to what Sangita said. The primary word here is mindset. Because if you were to define success, success is not having conversations like this. Because that's really equality. And that's possible. I would tell you, growing up and through my early career, I never felt this divide. Right? That probably stems from my mother, who was in the second batch at IIM Ahmedabad, one of two women, and an entrepreneur in the late 60s. My wife, who's one of the leaders in education today. And I was in organizations mainly in the US where my first 5 bosses were women. Right? So coming back to India is when I really felt it, that this is different now. But that comes back to mindset, and how can we create the organization culture where it is viewed as equal, everything. Policies, how we relate to each other, seat at the table at all levels, that's when we will have success.
That's when we'll have success. Hitendra, what's the 5 priority areas for you?
No, I think we mentioned it earlier that it's the right thing to do for your customers, for your staff, for your management team. So, what is the right thing to do, we always do. So if, advertising at a particular spot, let's say in her industry, is the right thing to do, you do it. So I think we all, and this is all men in the organization, definitely the senior women in the organization, need to be re-emphasizing again and again. This is, if you want a long, successful business, you will not be able to do so unless you have diversity of inputs. And clearly science tells you or data tells you that you get that. I think the other thing, and the unconscious biases will have to go away. So one of the very senior leaders in my organization once told me that you know what is happening? For the same, let's say, a very aspirational role, if it's there,
Yeah.
you will take a bet on the men or the male candidate much more easily, but for the women, she has to pass much higher level of historical performance.
Yeah.
And that is and see, it is something I never thought of till it was told to me that, yes, he's done something, he's a great guy, he's gregarious, he'll get it done. And, in her case, she has to show that she's got like top rating.
And she won't talk about it, by the way. She will not talk about it.
Yeah. So it is changing. At least in our organization, it is changing. There is no shyness in the organization, which is great, right? The third thing I think is, it was mentioned earlier, but you do need a proper mentoring, coaching, networking. It doesn't seem to come naturally for whatever reason. But it will come naturally if there is a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations, where whichever way you want to call it, the boys club, the girls club, or whatever, but it is seen to be the natural way, and that need not be just all women, but just a group of people who can go out. I also think you need specific programs. See, all talk will end up with nothing if we don't. Now you want to call it reservation. But just somewhere where you're telling the women out there, and I want to use this broadcast to tell all the women out there, all the women in this room, that we, for example, have a program called Power to Her. It's a spectacularly successful program. Any woman who's taken a career break for whatever reason can come back 1 year to 25 years later, right? Anytime you want to come back, you want to taste the workplace once again because it's been a long time, come back for 6 months or 1 year. That gives you on-the-job experience, and we make every effort thereafter to make sure that that converts into a proper job. And last, like I said, I think in any organization, the senior leadership will have to take sponsor, will have to really drive this thinking, kill any negativity on that, and thereafter that it happens.
Well, and it is going to be a generational shift. It's going to be a generational change. Manish.
So I think one of the best, so if we look at a roadmap, what we'd love to get to is where we don't have to track these statistics anymore, and it just flows. And one of the lines that very early on got me thinking was, when I was told that there's a difference between being invited to the party and having fun at the party. It's very easy. We can send out invitations 50-50, but did you have fun at the party? If you had fun at that party, then you've made it work. So if we get it right, we wouldn't need to track this anymore. We're a long way from there, but if we can get to that point. And a couple of interesting experiments we're going to have to try to go above and beyond, right? A lot is spoken about when you're having a kid. The easy part is the 6 months off. If you don't do it, there's a law, and you've come to accept it. How are you going to make it easy for folks to work when they come back? 2 points. Hitendra spoke about the careers 2.0 or people coming back. The person who heads recruitment for us, she's in the audience today. She came back after having taken a break and actually led recruitment for us, that then it was obvious, saying if I can do it, it makes it easier. And I think experiments that if they work, so where I sit, just downstairs is the crash. So every time I look out of my window, I see a crash. And the number of people, who've come back in saying the hard part's not the 6 months. It's when I've got to leave, my toddler at home and come to work. Then it's, then each time I've sort of asked and saying, the kid's got a fever, I'm at work. Every time I'm asked is it worth it? That's when it starts to break down. And the fun part actually is, it's a lovely creche downstairs, it's a lovely daycare. And half the time actually there's guys in the office who are going down to check on their kids. And, over there is moms and dads. So if you facilitate some of these things, make it easier for folks to come back, you're not going away in the first place. And,
absolutely.
Like he was saying, stickiness is pretty much for life then.
Ambassador, your message?
My message is actually that there is no really sustainable development without taking all persons on board and really seriously on board, and give the chance to the boys and girls, equal chances to men and women. The other one is that this is really smart thing to do, because the companies are making better profit if they have more diversity on their boards. That is proven fact. There is a higher economic prosperity when everybody is engaged in equal manner. So it is a smart thing to do. And then the third thing is that there can be really a good life-work balance. My country is really having that, and that is really one of the reasons why Finland has been chosen 5th time in a year as the most happiest country in the world.
Absolutely.
So it makes you happy also.
Yes.
That you don't really always have to work.
Yeah.
And the fourth is really that it is a mindset.
Yeah.
I'm very proud mother of 2 children, 2 girls, who have married or boyfriends who can cook, clean, and take care of them.
Absolutely. And may their tribe prosper and increase as well. Mr. Venkatram.
I think number one priority always for us is tone at the top. The boss has to walk the talk. You've got to call out when people don't do it. You've got to take specific affirmative steps that people know that this is business and that it's good for business. The second is, we cleansed all our policies 7 years ago when we started the journey to say it should all be gender neutral. We don't want something for men and something for women. And that therefore means that even to the point that you made, that if you want people to not sit late, don't say women should not sit after 8 o'clock. Say nobody should sit after 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because the longer the men sit, at promotion time, they say, I worked harder.
Yeah.
So when you get them out of the office, get them all out of the office. I equally do it for drinks. I actually had a 1-hour drinks rule. Because you find that women can't sit late, right? So you said, if you have an evening of cocktails, it's 1 hour. You want to stack 5 in front of you and do glug, 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 do it. But we stop in 1 hour. And I found that these, are very purposeful and they really work. The most important is sponsorship.
Yes.
We found that sponsorship are 2-tier for us. One is sponsorship for, as they're in their careers, critical jobs for us, like say, manager to senior manager to director, director to partner. But then when we really reviewed it, and I have Manish Shah who leads DEI for us, a very interesting twist we gave to this is, we said, let's look at our senior women partners and sponsor them too.
Yeah.
Because we think that this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing you've got to do. You've unlocked the chakras and they're going to flourish.
Yeah.
But you've got to go back and say what's working, what's not working.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you've got to go back and support them visibly. And every person in leadership has to do that.
Well,
that was 3.
Yeah, and that's the perfect note to end this conversation on. I think we've heard some very meaningful, insightful ideas and, of course, actual experiences being shared here by the leaders. And I completely agree with you that it has to be thoughtful, it has to be purposeful, and it has to be a journey. It cannot be, checking the boxes. It has to be reviewed, assessed continuously, and it has to sort of stand the test of time. And just to end, I think we've been pretty mindful of this at CNBC-TV18 as well. And I'm very, very proud to say that we have 0 attrition at the level of the mid-management where young mothers have taken off because of maternity. We want them back. We value them when they come back. And I think that's really the message that we need to send out to women who return back to the workforce. So many, many thanks to Hitendra Dave, Prabha, Anish, Sangita, Manish, Ambassador, and Mr. Venkatram for joining us here to kick off the first conversation at the Future Female Forward. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you all the esteemed panelists and of course Shereen for that insightful conversation, and the long way we still have to go to ensure gender parity even in terms of mental health and burnout. As mentioned in Deloitte's Women at Work report, it's a holistic change that we need to bring out collectively. Let's explore a lot more journeys on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.
दादा IXIGO नहीं इक्सिगो एक्सिगो नहीं इक्सिगो
नाम में क्या लगा है बिड़ू, सीधा बोल देने का। इक्सिगो ट्रैवल ऐप डाउनलोड करो, बिंदास टिकट बुक करो और निकल लो।
Odisha, the unstoppable force welcomes you. to highlight Odisha's emerging industrial aptitude. Our visionary leadership introduced an inspired idea, the Make in Odisha Conclave. Odisha is ready to enthrall you all over again. Align with the growth ideas from thought leaders, finding ways to explore the zenith and beyond, showcasing skills, encouraging startups, enhancing women-led entrepreneurship, developing our designated key focus sectors, celebrating culture like never before. We are ready for us.
I invite you all to the Make in Odisha Conclave. Come join the juggernaut.
All right, moving on. Now, there are two types of people in this world. The first category of people believe that their destiny is written in the stars. The second category of people write their destiny in the stars and shine the brightest. Here's a look at these extraordinary journeys.
Data, they say, is the new oil. Meet the ladies who design the most sophisticated forms of data collection and processing for the Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, to you and me. They head space... Data, they say, is the new oil. Meet the ladies who design the most sophisticated forms of data collection and processing for the Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, to you and me. They head space programs that will serve the needs of India and many other countries. Opportunity at the workplace is a reflection of an entire society, and India has some shining examples to offer the world. We know them for having achieved what few in the world have been able to dream. Celestial bodies made way for their ambition to become real. Meet the people who made the unprecedented and unimaginable possible. Future Female Forward. The Women's Collective is honored to host and felicitate ladies who make ISRO and all of us believe we can reach the stars.
Today we are honored as we have some extremely wonderful women who are a true embodiment and testimony of the latter category. I would now like to call Shereen Bhan, Hitendra Dave, CEO HSBC India, N. Venkatram, CEO Deloitte India, and Shamla Gopinath, former RBI Deputy Governor, to felicitate the women who have globally become famous as the ISRO women. If you could kindly come up on stage. Through their determination and resilience, these women are positioning India as a top leader in space exploration. They have played an integral role in taking India, metaphorically and figuratively, to the moon and the stars. They've been making various ISRO projects successful over the years. Can we have Dr. N. Aparna, Group Director, NRSE Data Center, Dr. Rashmi Sharma, Scientist G, Space Application Center, Ahmedabad, and Dr. Ritu Karidal, Senior Scientist, Yuva Rao Satellite Center, Bengaluru, on the stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, they deserve a standing ovation. Request you all to kindly stand up and give them a huge round of applause. Kindly do the honor. Ladies and gentlemen, keep the applause going. and gentlemen, we can't let you go. A few questions, and let me start with you, Dr. Ritu. You were a part of the much talked about Chandrayaan, Mission Chandrayaan 2. How was your experience? Talk to us about the hardship phase and the many celebrations that followed.
Thank you so much, Shereen ma'am, and calling us here, giving us so much honor. Yes, Chandrayaan and this Mars Orbiter mission, they were very challenging missions for us. And as you know, this was a mission where we had to go first time and capture the Martian orbit. It was really challenging, and I'm very happy to say that for such missions, the team of equal number of women and men scientists work for it. And that's why I'm here. And very happy to say that, yes, ISRO has provided, that sort of safe and secure environment and the merit-based progress. So that has helped all the women scientists who have worked there and come out and show their talent and really achieved something which created history in the history of our ISRO and India. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Aparna, I would like to now ask you, like we showed in the AV also, data is the new oil and something that we've seen across industries. Again, satellite data is not something that we talk about on a daily basis. And of course, we also don't see much women participation in the data science space. How can we change this and your experience working with them?
First of all, thank you for calling us here and honoring us this way. Really thankful for that. Actually, it's a wrong opinion. So when you say in ISRO, we in NRSC who are working in the data center, I have almost 50% ladies. And we do take care of the data acquisition, the data processing, and the data assimilation and dissemination, both we do. And I have a women force with me, as well as my organization has almost say 20 to 30% of women who are in the higher top positions. So it's not that way. We in ISRO are very comfortable, and whatever you people were discussing today, inclusivity and then, allowing the women after the maternity leave, we do give them the same positions what they were working before they go on the leave and all that. So that way, we are achieving what we are, and ISRO is what it is today because of all this freedom and, the openness given to us that we can say what we want to say and work what way we would like to work. They listen to us and they do take care of us. That's why we are here.
Wonderful to hear that, and lessons that corporate India perhaps can take from ISRO. One final question, Dr. Rashmi, and I want to ask you, talk to us about the kind of grassroots level work that you're doing and the kind of women you meet there and then their significant contributions.
Thank you. Thank you, CNBC, and the partners who have called us here. Actually, it's a very different kind of experience for us. We are not used to this kind of, such gatherings and all. Anyway, and I also thank ISRO for nominating us to attend this beautiful the meetings. So the question which you asked is the data. Actually, what you heard from Madam is that there's a lot of satellite data, right? Now, the point is what to do with the satellite data. So the important thing is that you convert this satellite data into different applications and then to the informed decision so that it reaches to the grassroots level. So that has been, in fact, the idea and the vision of the ISRO right from the beginning, from our founding father, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. He said the space technology used to meet the common man's, their requirements for the national development. So with that as an objective, we have been working. And in fact, I should tell you that in this kind of a development of the applications, what we do, we have, the women's contributions are enormous. Actually, they are coming up with enormous ideas, cutting-edge research they are doing, data science. You talk of anything and they are there. And just one example I'll give you, while we develop these applications for, catering to the different sectors, the women are traveling to the Antarctica for expeditions, going for months together, then they are in the seas for days together, rough seas. So women are there everywhere. They are ready to take up very big challenges. And ISRO is one organization we are very proud of because it really offers you that neutral platform. And when we talk about the neutral platform, The leadership believes in it. They have a faith in it. It's not lip-sync, actually, just not for the sake of saying. And we never felt in my 31 years, I mean, I have completed 31 years in ISRO, I never felt even a single day that I should leave ISRO. So that ISRO is an amazing organization. I must say the leadership has been amazing. So thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, all the young girls, and I mean, some of you may be the researchers, students. As I said, that there is a lot of opportunity, the space is limitless, so the opportunities are limitless. So please come join ISRO and contribute to the national development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. A huge round of applause for the ISRO women. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Thank you, everyone. Today at the Future Female Forward, the Women's Collective, we are celebrating and recognizing the women entrepreneurs, the women power that is making headlines, breaking barriers, and emerging as a leader by the go-getter attitude. Time for us to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.